example, in this room earlier this afternoon, there was a very valuable session with a lot of prominent lawyers in Hong Kong and in the GBA area, sharing the development in the legal sector. Okay, so if, for example, if you work in the legal field, in the legal sector, you definitely need professional knowledge and industry knowledge and expertise in the legal area. Okay, and apart from that, okay, in this day and age, with information being so readily available and also freely sort of shared, as it were, across disciplines, having interdisciplinary knowledge will also help you advance in your career. For example, let's say if you work in human resources, all right, okay, in addition to just being proficient with perhaps interviewing potential candidates and so on, if you have knowledge in terms of, let's say, employment law, okay, and things like that, it will also help you advance or do a better job, okay, in your particular area in human resources, because you don't need to consult, okay, another person if you have, let's say, a particular query, okay. If you have the knowledge, then you can probably handle that particular issue or query yourself as well, because it will help, I'm sure, okay, advance in your career. Now, apart from professional knowledge in your field, interdisciplinary knowledge, general knowledge can also help you. For example, let's say if you are dealing with somebody in the US, right, okay, and general knowledge meaning perhaps their, okay, public holidays are different from ours. They have different holidays and so on. For example, Thanksgiving this year is November 27th. If you're working with somebody in the US, okay, and if you are trying to get them to reply to you quickly on some issue, or if you are pushed for time, okay, imagine Thanksgiving is a very big holiday in the US. Everybody could take a very long break with their family, spend time with their family and so on. They're not likely to be able to be, okay. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, all right, okay. I need to speak up apparently. All right, okay. So this camera can pick up, is your camera okay? Picking up the voice? Okay, so I need to speak up for this camera. Okay, all right, I'll do that. All right, so we were on Thanksgiving in the US. Okay, now let's say if you were trying to get a very speedy response from somebody in the US, but you've forgotten that it's their Thanksgiving holiday, okay, and you keep chasing them, okay, you probably will end up with some very negative emotions, as it were, okay, because they probably don't appreciate you chasing them, okay, with their very important festival or a family gathering kind of occasion, as it were. So having general knowledge will also help you. Now, in the old days, before smartphone and the apps, as it were, okay, are so readily available and so helpful, there was a time when we had to try and schedule meetings across the continents, okay, and sometimes people forget that there is daylight saving times, okay, in certain jurisdictions. And sometimes when you schedule a multi sort of geographical area call, as it were, sometimes hiccups can happen. But I think, you know, with smartphones now, it's easy. You just check the time, okay, in your other area that you're trying to connect with, okay? So professional knowledge, industry knowledge, interdisciplinary knowledge, general knowledge will help, definitely. You need them, okay? Now, if you have all those, okay, you also need communication skills, right? By communication skills, I don't just mean the language that you use to talk to people, okay? But communication skills, it's a bigger genre, okay, area, encompassing the skills that you use to try and understand people, okay? So you don't just talk, okay? It's not just a one-way communication. Communication is two-way. So you need the skills to be able to listen to what other people have to say, to pick up on clues on what they're trying to tell you subtly, okay, maybe without explicitly saying something, but you need to be able to tell that they're not happy with something, they're happy with something, and so on. So you need communication skills. Now, language skills is a subset of communication skills, okay? So you need all that, okay, sort of professional knowledge, and so on, and then communication skills. And you also need language skills in the language that you are, that your target or that the people that you're working with, okay, the language that they use. You also need skills in that language to be able to communicate with them, right? Okay, so we're talking about a subset, okay, language skills being a subset of communication skills, and then English language skills is another subset, right, of language skills, okay? Now, today we're going to focus, because we don't have time to talk about everything, so we'll just focus on a few things today. First of all, we'll talk about the language skills in legal and business setting, and then we'll talk about plain English, what it means, how it can help you in communicating more effectively, all right? And also the role of AI, because we can't avoid talking about AI these days, okay? Now, in terms of language skills in legal and business setting, we've chosen legal and business setting, okay, as one of the focuses today, because in this day and age, even if you're not working in the legal field, okay, having legal knowledge will help you in a lot of ways, okay, because the law sets boundaries for you, for us, for citizens, for people, right? It sets the rights on one hand and the obligations, okay, that we have as people on this planet, right? So knowing the law and knowing the language of the law will help us not just advance in our career, but also maybe live more smartly, perhaps, okay, as an individual, okay? Now, in Hong Kong, okay, we are a common law jurisdiction. So when we talk about the language skills in the legal setting and business setting, we can't escape explaining a little bit about the common law system, okay, if you're not familiar with the legal system, as it were. Okay, now, a little bit of history, very briefly. I don't want to dwell on history, as it were, but okay, you will realize or you'll remember that Hong Kong was a colony, okay, of Britain, of English, okay, as it were. And in the old days, the English had a lot of colonies in a lot of places, not just Hong Kong, okay? And they transported the common law system and the legal English, as it were, to the many countries that they colonized, okay? Now, since the Norman conquest of England in 1066 AD, not just English, but French, Latin, and English had been adopted as the legal language of the English common law system at different times. Okay, eventually, English was the language that outlived French and Latin. Okay, now because of the complicated history and the evolution of the legal language, it's given rise to some unique characteristics of the sort of common law language, as it were. And these unique characteristics actually cause a lot of difficulties for comprehension. Now, we don't have time to go over all these characteristics in detail, but I'll just highlight some of them today and go over perhaps how you can tackle them. Okay? Because if you understand the characteristics of the language of the common law, you'll be able to find ways to help you learn better, okay, and master the language better. Okay, now, I'll just briefly, okay, describe some of them. Okay, terms arising from case law, okay, Latin terms and so on. Some of these words may sound very difficult or sort of foreign, as it were, but I'll try and sort of use very maybe simple examples, as it were, to illustrate them, okay? And we'll be seeing slides on the common terms arising from case law and the Latin terms in later on, okay? Now, common words with special meaning in legal setting, I'll also illustrate with some very simple examples. Now, nominal character or nominalization, that means that in the legal language, there's a tendency to use nouns instead of a verb, a simple word. For example, okay, you can simply say to apply, for example, to apply to the Securities and Futures Commission, okay? But in legal terms, there's a tendency to use nouns, meaning instead of saying to apply, you say to make an application for, right? Okay, so it makes the sentence longer. Okay, if your English skills is not strong, okay, it will add to confusion, and if your grammar is not strong, okay, you may end up with a lot of hiccups here and there. Okay, but this is one characteristic of the language of the law. Okay, and then there are a lot of complex prepositional phrases. We'll look at a few examples in a minute. For example, in respect of, okay, the document in respect of the application, instead of saying that the documents regarding the application, things like that, okay? We'll be looking at some examples later on as well. Binomial and multinomial expressions, okay, this is in English, this is quite, okay, it can be very simple. For example, I can say I like apple, oranges, and banana. Okay, these are multinomial expressions, okay, apple, oranges, and banana. But, okay, I can expand them into saying I like singing in the shower, okay, I like swimming in the sea. Okay, so singing in the shower, swimming in the sea, that will be multinomial expressions. Again, it can get very complicated. It can get longer. Okay, and then if your English is not strong, okay, you can end up with a lot of confusion and so on. And if you're in terms of reading, okay, if your English is not strong, it will also influence somehow. Okay, it will cause difficulty in comprehension. Okay, now syntactic discontinuities, okay, and I'll show you an example later on as well. Okay, now in English, sometimes we use a lot of commas in our sentence structures, and then after the comma, okay, we use a phrase or a clause to explain, okay, what's before the comma. Okay, so these are, and again, it will be easier with an example later. Okay, these are syntactic discontinuities. Long and complex sentences, okay, sometimes with little or no punctuation marks. Sometimes you can have a sentence with 100 words or more without a full stop, okay? And that will make understanding a sentence very difficult. And also, there may be a lot of sentences containing a lot of exceptions and qualifications in the language of the law, okay? So this is just a list of some of the characteristics of the language of the law. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the legal system at all, okay, let's just maybe use a few minutes to explain. The common law system is comprised of statutory law. Okay, this means the law that is passed by LegCo, okay, in Hong Kong. Okay, the legislation. Okay, for example, companies ordinance and so on. Okay, and then in addition to the written law, as it were, the statutory law, we also have case law. Okay, this is a collection of judgments of the courts of Hong Kong and also other common law jurisdictions. Okay, some of these judgments have binding, what we call stare decisis, or doctrine of precedent comes into play. Okay, sometimes they're binding on the courts, on the lower courts in Hong Kong. Sometimes they're for reference only. Now, this is not a law lecture, so we're not going to go into that. But just to keep in mind that the language of the law actually comprises statutory law and also case law. Okay, and I'll show you some resources later on, okay, where you can actually look up words, okay, coming from the statutes or coming from case law. Okay, now, okay, another complication is that the common law is not static. Okay, it doesn't stay the same forever. Okay. Now, if you're here at the 2 o'clock session, okay, you will have heard that the common law has the benefit of adapting to local conditions. Okay, it evolves with people's customs and expectations and so on. Okay, because of this evolution and because of these adaptations, it means the language will also evolve. Okay, now major changes in the law then, okay, especially those reflecting policy changes, will come through legislation, and incremental changes, smaller changes, will come through case law. And remember that the first characteristic that I put on the list is the terms arising from case law. Okay, and here's an example that I want to give you. This is an example of a term arising from a case law back in 1975. Okay, now the green names or words in the bottom of the slide is actually the parties. They are the parties involved. Okay, in this particular case, the Marufa company, and so on. Okay, so the decision, okay, of this particular case, okay, arising from this case is the Marufa injunction. Okay, now the word Marufa is actually the name, okay, of one of the parties of the case. It's not just an English word. So you appreciate that when we say terms arising from case law, okay, you will end up with words that you can't just guess from looking at the word itself. By guessing, you will never get the meaning. You need to look up a legal dictionary perhaps, okay, or do some Google search and so on, okay? Now again, because it's not a law lecture, so I'm not going to go into the details of the type of injunction that this is, okay? But it will suffice to say that, okay, you need to be, you need to have an open mind, okay, when you read legal text and so on. Okay, you will come up with a lot of funny-looking words or terms, okay, that have special meanings. Okay, so this is one example of a term arising from case law. Now, another characteristic, remember that in the language of the common law, there are a lot of Latin terms. Latin terms are often retained to represent a legal concept. They're not translated into English because of the fear of losing some of the highly specialized meaning of the legal vocabulary. Okay, and here are some examples. Prima facie, okay, ratio decidendi, or somebody will pronounce this ratio decidendi, okay, obiter dictum, pari passu. Again, it's not a law lecture, so I don't want to go into detail, but you can read the reason, okay, on the slide if you're interested. Okay, now, okay, so we've looked at something technical, okay, terms arising from case law, okay, Latin terms. Now, the common words as well, okay, in the language of the law, but, okay, be very careful because there are common words in our everyday English with special meaning in the legal setting. Take the word audience as an example, right? You all know the word audience in everyday English, in the meaning of everyday English, right? In Cantonese, 觀眾, okay? Perhaps when you go to a concert, you're an audience of a concert. But in another context, okay, it can mean a request. Okay, if you say, I request an audience with the king, that means I would like to see him. Please, can you arrange, okay? Okay, I'm requesting to see the king. Okay, and in Hong Kong, in the law of Hong Kong, okay, if you have a right of audience in a particular court, okay, this applies to lawyers, okay, because lawyers have different right of audience in different courts. All right, okay, so be very careful, okay, sometimes we may think that we know a word, we know what it means, okay, but if you read the sentence, somehow if you apply the meaning that you know, somehow it doesn't make sense, okay, then maybe it's time to start looking up the dictionary, or maybe start looking up in Google or something, okay, to find another meaning, or maybe the third meaning, okay, that actually is relevant in the particular context that you're looking at. All right, okay? Okay, or another word or another example is issue, the word issue. Again, okay, it's a common English word, like a particular issue of a magazine, okay, to issue something, to give out something, okay, but in law, it actually means offspring. Yes, okay, it's not on the slide. Just another example that I thought I would share with you. Okay, all right. No, okay, so the next slide is actually about the complex prepositional phrases, okay, that we see a lot in legal writings, okay, in statutes and in case law, in wherever, okay. All right, so when you want to express ground of legitimacy, okay, there are a lot of prepositions that you can use, okay, under a certain section of the law, pursuant to a particular section, as it were, or pursuant to a particular rule, perhaps it's your building, okay, your buildings, rules and so on, okay, or rules of the university and so on, okay, by virtue of, according to, in compliance with, in accordance with, okay, these all express some kind of ground of legitimacy, okay, but if you actually go into the details, if you look at the context, they don't actually represent the same thing, okay, or this list of prepositions, as it were, they don't mean the same thing, okay, all right, but again, we're not in a law lecture, so let me just skip that, okay. Another example is, okay, prepositional phrases that express interclausal qualification. For example, subject to, you hear that a lot, okay, in legal term, in legal language and so on, okay. Very simply, it expresses a condition, okay, it means conditional upon something, but in the context of the whole sentence or of what you're talking about, the subject to in your sentence, in your particular scenario, may mean exception, may mean compliance with something, or it may mean compatibility with something. Okay, so there are a lot of intricacies, okay, with using these prepositional phrases. Okay, and then you will also hear notwithstanding, okay, a lot, except, save, and so on. So these are prepositions that you see a lot in legal writings. Okay. Now, again, okay, even though subject to has to do with condition, being a conditional upon something, just be very careful when you read a sentence containing the phrase subject to. Just make sure that you get the right meaning, okay, in the particular context that you're looking at. Okay, now, having thrown a lot of terminology or big words at you, okay, let me just share with you some resources that you can use actually to help you. This is, okay, I'm trying to go to the hyperlink. Here, okay. Okay, so this is a glossary that the Department of Justice has put together. Okay, you can search using English. Okay, you can also search using Chinese. Okay, it's bilingual. Okay, now these are words and phrases and so on that are actually in the legislations in Hong Kong. For example, I mentioned the word audience. Okay, all right, see, right? Okay, audience, it will actually tell you the Chinese expression, okay, for the word audience, and it will also give you the actual place or the legislation itself where it appears, so it's very helpful. All right, so if you see a term that you're not sure about, okay, you can search under this glossary, and it will also actually lead you to the actual legislation, okay, that it appears in. Very helpful, right? Okay. You want to see married? M-E-R, merit, okay, all right, hold on. Let me just go back. Okay. Okay. All right. So these are all the entries involving the word merit or its variation. Merit or merits. Merits of appeal, okay, merits of the case, and so on. Merits test, and so on. All right? Happy? Okay, good. All right then. Now, okay, let me show you. Oops, this is another one that I was going to show you later on. Okay, let's go back to this one. Okay, now remember that the common law actually encompasses legislation and also case law. Okay, so the glossary that I just showed you only has the terms in the legislation, okay, itself. But with case law, you will have to go to other resources. Like, for example, there's this publication, okay, called Terminology Used in Legislation and Judgment in Case Law. Okay. Now, even if you don't take down the actual website, as it were, it's very easy. If you just do a Google search on combined glossary of legal terms published by the Department of Justice, you'll find it very easily. Okay. All right then. Now, okay. I know there's a lot to talk about. Okay, if you're talking about the characteristic of the language of the common law. Okay, but hopefully I've shown you some just sort of basic examples, okay, of what the characteristics involved. And in terms of the grammatical structure of sentences and so on, like if you have long sentences, okay, I was going to show you the, hold on, let's go back. Remember I talked about syntactic discontinuities, okay? It's very difficult to grasp perhaps, but if you look at this one, okay? If you look at the definition for merger injunction here, an interlocutory court order restraining a party from removing from the jurisdiction of the court, comma, or otherwise dealing with, comma, assets, whether money or goods. This is what we mean by syntactic discontinuation. Okay, you see that a lot in legal writing, right? Okay, now, if you have a piece of long text, okay, as I was saying, it's very common to have a piece of text with more than 100 words without any commas, or just one full stop, as it were. Okay, if you know the markers to look for in the text, okay, those are the hints for you to split up the sections of your long sentence so that it will help you understand the sentence easier. Okay, so if you know the characteristics, as it were, okay, if you know the tactics in dealing with them, okay, then it will help you. Okay. All right, it will help you master the language skills, which will be instrumental to advancing your career. Okay, and okay. Now, Hong Kong Youth Space has actually put together a lot of courses, okay, that will be instrumental, as it were, okay, to help you develop your language skills, English language skills. And if you were in this session at 2 o'clock, you know that there are perhaps lawyers coming from the GBA area who want to take the examination towards becoming a registered lawyer in Hong Kong. And there are workshops to help these people to take the exam, and then there is also an English skills workshop to help them deal with the language part of the workshop. Okay, and okay, all right, and then there are also other courses that will help you with business English and so on. And I'll be talking about plain English in a minute, so I'm going to skip this for now. Okay. But if you're interested, okay, you can just go to the Hong Kong Youth Space website, okay, to search for the course that are of interest or that appeal to you, perhaps. Okay. Now, we've talked about the language of the common law. Okay. You will see from the example that I think you agree, having seen the examples just now, that you agree that the language of the law of the common law is not easy. Right? Very convoluted, okay? Very difficult to understand. Perhaps it seems like it's written to deter your understanding, right? Okay, now that's why there has been a movement called the Plain English Movement, okay? Now, what it is that the language of the common law being so difficult, okay, sometimes people call it the legalese, as it were. There's a term given to it to describe the difficulty, as it were. Okay. Now, being so difficult, okay, it causes problems in comprehension, not just for the lay person, okay, but also for lawyers themselves and for judges and so on. Okay. So the plain English movement, okay, started gaining acceptance and popularity actually a few decades ago. It's not recent. It's been going on for a few decades. Okay. The idea is that if you enhance comprehension, if you make the language easier to understand, you enhance comprehension, okay, you also enhance understanding and also communication within the legal profession or between lawyers and their clients, okay? And by doing that, what you're doing is you're improving access to the law itself. So you're making the ordinary citizens, okay, easier to access the law. Okay, so that's why the plain English movement, as it were, has been gaining importance. Now, in terms of the movement itself, okay, in Hong Kong, okay, it didn't start in Hong Kong, okay, but in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong government has also buy-in, okay, to use plain English. If you look at the legislation that was enacted in 1971, this is one of them, okay. This is the Interstate Estates Ordinance enacted in 1971. Okay, just to show you some example, let me go to section 4 here. Okay, so succession to estate on intestacy. Now, I don't want to go into the law itself, but okay, just visually, if you look at subsection 3, okay, it's a whole long paragraph without a full stop, right? Okay, it tells you how to divide up, okay, the inheritance, as it were, okay? So this is actually, and again, okay, subsection 4, a whole long sentence, okay, without a full stop, as it were. Very difficult to understand, okay? And it takes a lot of patience, as it were, okay, to try and read it, okay? But if you look at the Prevention and Control Disease Ordinance, which was enacted in 2008, so a few decades later, even the Hong Kong government now is using what we call plain language. Okay, see, even visually, it's a lot easier to digest and easier to absorb and easier to understand, and you don't feel so inundated, right? Okay, so you break up your section into small paragraphs and you use bullet points and so on to help present the information, right? Okay, so you see the contrast. Okay, so this is what plain English movement is about. Okay, now in addition to legislation, okay, let's go back to this one. Okay, in addition to legislation, in other legal documents like contracts, tenancy agreements, and so on, okay, people are also using plain English. For example, okay, if you're familiar with older contracts, okay, people would have a whereas section or recital section, okay, to talk about the background, okay, of the contract, okay, how it came about, okay, what the parties are trying to achieve with the particular contract. These days, you'll see a lot of contract with a section just called background. Okay, so you're using plain language in place of the legalese. Okay, it's not just in Hong Kong, even in the UK, even in Australia, they're using that, they're adopting that. Okay, which is good, okay, for a lot of people. Okay, so having said that, what is plain English after all? So plain English then is language that is simple, clear, direct, straightforward, precise, okay, and concise. Right, now what it is not is that it's not obscure, convoluted, okay, it's not entangled anymore, it's not laced with jargon, okay, or a lot of multiple negation, as in, you know, sort of like, which is commonplace in legal language. But then again, having said that, it's not simplistic, okay, it's not childish. You're using simple language, but you're not using childish language. You're not using baby talk. You're not being playful, okay? So you're just taking out the, and you're also not taking out all the necessary information. All the important information, all the technical information is still there. You retain them, okay? And it is not imprecise. You're not taking things out to cut words in your paragraph, to cut it short, to make it simple by making it shorter. It's not just like that, okay? And it's not just simply polishing or editing after you finish writing. So not just writing, okay, a paragraph and then, okay, let's go back and cut it short and turn it into plain English. It doesn't work that way. It's not that. So in other words, it's not that easy. It's not as easy as you think, but okay, it's helpful. It's very helpful. Okay, it's helpful for the audience. If the audience find whatever you're trying to communicate easier to understand, it will also help you communicate with them. Okay, now, okay, if it's not easy, then why do we use it? Okay, because we use it so that we can communicate more effectively. Okay, it facilitates understanding, it prevents or minimizes, okay, misunderstanding. Okay, you can be direct and effective and so on. It also facilitates translation in our globalized economy these days. Okay, and it shows that you have a customer focus, and it also improves compliance in a lot of ways. Now, okay, sometimes, having said that, with all these advantages, why is plain English not used then? Okay, sometimes people prefer to keep using the old writing style to show off, right? Okay, I can manage one sentence with 100 words to show off, okay, to add word count. Okay, if you are handing in an assignment, you need word count, okay? You need to make up the word count, so you may want to do that, okay? Maybe sometimes it's a lack of will to change, because trying to make a change in an established habit is very difficult. So maybe it's just the lack of will to change. Or maybe it's the lack of ability, because as I mentioned earlier, it's not easy. It's not just cutting your sentence short. You have skills, you have the devices that you can use, the techniques that you can use. So maybe you don't have the ability, you don't have the skills, you don't have the devices to do it, okay? Or maybe you don't have the knowledge to do it, okay? Now, I just want to show you as well some examples of real-life examples of who is actually using plain language. I've shown you governments are using it, okay, in their legislation. The Hong Kong government using it. Listed companies is using it in their announcement, okay, in the public announcement that they make. Financial institutions is using it, okay, in their prospectuses, okay, that they publish. Lawyers are using it as well. Perhaps everyone should be using it. And just to show you some example of resources, as it were, okay, that you can go to, and perhaps to get tips, as it were, on how to write using plain English. The Securities and Futures Commission of Hong Kong has done a lot of projects and done a lot of publications on it. This is only one of them. I'm just showing you, okay, one example of where you can go to find help on, or examples or demonstrations on using plain English. Okay, so this is a publication that the SFC, okay, has done. Okay, it gives you. Let's go back to the top. Okay. Okay, it actually gives you a lot of techniques. It shows you, okay, the techniques that you can use, okay, to help come up with a document in plain language, plain English, so that it's easier for the public to understand and so on. They also, in this document, there are also examples of announcements that listed companies can use, the format that they can use, okay, instead of using the old convoluted style. Okay, now, okay, how are we doing for time? Okay, now, okay, what I want to emphasize though is that, oops, okay, when you write using plain English, okay, first of all, you need to identify your audience. Okay, like with your writing, your other pieces of writing, first of all, you identify your audience. You think of why your audience needs to read your document. Okay, you keep in mind your audience ability to understand technical and or difficult language. So you attune, you tune the wordings and so on to your audience needs and requirement. Okay, and you focus on the purpose of your document. Okay, now you can also choose an appropriate format and organize accordingly. Now, I've mentioned devices and techniques that you can use. These are some of them. You can use a list. You can use a flow chart. You can use a table or rows of headings instead of a whole long piece of 100-word paragraph, sentence, and so on. Okay, I'll show you some examples in a minute. Also keep in mind that spatial and visual impacts can also help your audience to go through a document more quickly, to find what they want quickly, and to understand the document more easily. Okay, you can also use, keeping your audience in mind, you can also use appropriate language, like using active voice, okay, instead of passive voice. I don't know if you've noticed, but if you use Microsoft Word, okay, this is one experience that I have, and I'm quite annoyed because the general rule then, okay, is that they pick up on any passive voice that you use in your text. Okay, but sometimes, okay, as an experienced writer, okay, sometimes we use passive voice for a particular reason, but the Word will actually, okay, highlight all your passive voice, okay, and say that you need to change them, okay, but sometimes we keep them. We use passive voice for a reason. Like, for example, you want to focus on the fact or the act that was done, okay. For example, the window is broken, okay, somebody broke the window. You don't want to accuse anybody of breaking it, even if you know, all right. So you're just stating the fact that the window is broken. So I'm using passive voice to say the window is broken. I'm saying Alice broke the window. I can use passive, active voice, okay, if I'm adhering to plain English rules, okay. Alice broke the window, but I don't want to say that. I don't want to point finger at her, right? I just want to emphasize that, okay, the window needs fixing. It doesn't matter who broke it. Okay, if that's the situation, then a passive voice would be more appropriate. Okay, so as I keep going back to, okay, keeping your audience in mind and focusing on the purpose that you want to achieve with the particular writing that you're doing, right? So use the appropriate language to show, okay, to actually to carry, to get across the meaning that you want to deliver. Okay, now here's an example. okay? Text A and text B. I've taken this from Hong Kong Youth Space's website, okay? This is Hong Kong Youth Space's vision, mission, okay, and values, as it were. So text A is just a piece of words, paragraphs, in paragraph format, okay? Compare this with text B. Text B is what we actually, what we would call, okay, a piece of text that has adopted plain language techniques and strategies, okay? So we break it up, okay? We use headings, first of all, okay? The blue, vision, mission, and values. We use headings, all right? And then we use bullet points, okay? And then we cut out, by splitting them into bullet points, okay? We also actually maybe cut out a little bit of superfluous language, as it were, okay? We have reduced some of the redundant language as well. But we don't, this is not a language class per se, okay? So I'm not going into each sentence, okay, sentence by sentence to sort of illustrate or to explain what has been deleted, what's been added, and so on, okay? But just visually and spatially, okay, you can appreciate the difference, okay? By adding the heading, we also add a headline, like a header, as it were, to say, okay, Hong Kong Space strives for excellence in, and then use the bullet point. Instead of having to repeat, Hong Kong Space strives for excellence in collaborating, and so on, okay? So there are a lot of techniques that you can use, but by converting to a sort of bullet point format, it doesn't mean that you can just break up a sentence and then sort of put a bullet in front of it. It doesn't work that way. You need to put it in presentable language as well, understandable language as well. Okay, so we'll have time to show you another example in a minute. Okay, now, so this is what I mean by plain language, and this is an example, okay, of how we can use list, devices, bullet points, and so on to help us. Now, I keep going back to the point of fit for purpose and fit for the audience. So when you write something, okay, keep your audience in mind, keep your purpose in mind. Okay, use a language, select the words, select the vocabulary, select the format that is fit for the purpose and fit for the audience. Now, to show you another example, okay, Donald Trump, okay, he's been in the news, okay, a lot, but back in 2017, okay, I'm going to skip going to the YouTube video, but you can search for it later on, okay? Now, to save time, okay, I'm just going to illustrate the sentences. Back in 2017, okay, he gave a warning to North Korea, and this is sentence number 1 is actually the actual words that he said. He said, sorry, I'm not a very good impersonator, so I can't pretend to be Trump, but this is the exact words that he said, okay? He said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly power, the likes of which this world has never seen before. So you see the syntactic discontinuation here, the binomial expressions, polynomial expressions, and so on, okay? So you can imagine, okay, imagine him, okay, saying this, right, with his sort of arrogance and so on, okay? Now, what if I'm a reporter, I'm just reporting, okay, what he is actually trying to deliver, to warn, as it were, the Korean people, okay? They will be met with fire, fury, and power like the world has never seen, right? So, in a way, this is a more abbreviated version of his full-blown version, okay? But what if I still think that this is not too appropriate, okay, in my context, as it were, for my audience? What if I just say, they will be met with unprecedented fire, fury, and power, right? Okay, like the likes of which this world has never seen. One word to represent all that is unprecedented, right? But then again, okay, going back to the point of fit for purpose, fit for the audience, if you're Trump, okay, if you want to be dramatic, then there's nothing wrong with sentence number 1, right? So this is why I keep saying fit for the purpose. I wouldn't say which one is better. I mean, all of them are good. They're good sentences, okay? But depending on your scenario, on your situation, okay, on your audience, on what you want to, or the sort of the impression that you want to give, okay, you would select a different one, okay, in how you want to present your sentence. Right? Okay? Now, let's just, because we don't have a lot of time today, okay, so I'm going to jump onto our third focus today, the role of AI. Okay? Now, we're talking about career acceleration today, and we're talking about how language can help us accelerate. And how about using AI to help us accelerate our career, advance our career? Okay? So some people may be asking the question, why learn language now when we can ask the computer to do everything for us? Why don't we just ask AI, okay, to write our summary, write our report, and so on? Okay? Now, my experience is this. Okay, I have to admit that AI is helping me a lot at work as well, and it's helping me more than before. Okay, in the past, if I had to do a translation, if I tried to rely on the computer to help me translate something, okay, from Chinese into English, vice versa, okay, I need to do a lot of editing myself afterwards if the computer has done its part. Okay, but with AI now, okay, with the AI's ability now, okay, the work that I need to do, the editing that I need to do is less. But it doesn't mean that I can just ask the computer to do a piece of translation or a piece of report for me, and then I can just hand it into the boss. I still have to do my own work. I still have to do my own editing. I still have to go through it before I can submit the work to the boss. Okay? That means AI is helpful, but for the time being, it cannot replace me yet. If one day I can actually just ask the computer to do something for me, and then I can just, okay, say, fine, good enough, okay, straight to the boss. That means I'm replaceable. They don't need me anymore. I can go, I can retire. Right? Okay, so I think that day will come somehow, someday, okay? But having said that, okay, for what we can do now to make use of AI in our work to help us make advancements, okay, in our career, to help us do our work better, easier, okay? There are a lot of things that we need to watch out for. For example, first of all, we need to be able to tell the computer the prompt that we give them. We need to tell them clearly, okay, precisely what we want them to do for us, okay? And this is another language, okay, that we need to master, okay? Now, the example that I shared with you earlier, common words with specialized, very specialized meaning in the legal setting, audience. Okay, what if I just tell the computer, let's say if I'm interested in finding out about rules, things that I should do and should not do as an audience, okay? If you don't give it enough context, okay, the computer may give you the rules for maybe audience as in appearing in court, okay, for a lawyer to appear in court in Hong Kong, okay, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, okay, or the protocol, as it were, okay, or maybe or if you are just thinking, oh, I'm just going to a concert now. I hear that there are rules about I can't take in long umbrellas, okay, to the Kai-Tak venue, okay. I just want a computer to tell me about all these rules, okay, so that I don't bring in anything that I can't take in, okay. Or if I bring in a water bottle, I can't take the cap with me, and so on. I want to research all these rules, okay. But if you don't give enough context, or if you don't instruct the computer precisely, they may think, okay, if you are an audience at a concert, this is so simple. I don't think you're asking for these rules. I think you may be asking for the protocol, okay, that you are actually seeing the King of England, okay? All right, so they may give you protocols for appearing before the king, okay? And then you'll be confused, okay? But first of all, you need to understand that, okay, the instruction or the prompt, as it were, that you've given the AI, okay, is not precise enough. It gives it will give rise to misunderstanding or information that you won't be able to use, okay? Now, in terms of the role of AI then, okay, we talked about the prompt that you need to give, okay? Now, there are also other issues that you need to consider, okay? With generative AI, you know how they work, right? They learn from what you give them, okay? Whatever you input, okay? They pick up, okay, from your input, and then they use it for somebody else later on, okay, on another mission, as it were. Okay, so you need to think about, are you comfortable with giving up, okay, the confidentiality perhaps, okay, of the issue that you're dealing with, and asking the computer, giving them all the details so that they can help you come up with a solution? Is that what you want? Or let's say if you're trying to get them to write minutes for you, minutes of meeting for you. Okay, are you comfortable enough to share all the meeting discussions, okay, with whoever will be able to access it later on? Okay, so these are issues that you need to think about. Now, okay, again, okay, another example. While we're talking about AI, okay, we can also look at another example of plain English. Okay, now I didn't write this actually. This is a course description. Text A is a course description, okay, for an AI course that Hong Kong Youth Space, okay, is making available for people who are interested. Okay, but just visually, at a seminar like this, okay, if you're looking at a PowerPoint, if you're looking at text A on the screen, do you get put off? Do you lose patience? Right. Okay? Text B makes it easier for you, right? Okay? Now, okay, it doesn't mean that in all situations, okay, text B is definitely better. I wouldn't use the word better, as it were, but in this particular context, it is just more appropriate, I would say, okay, in a seminar like this. Text A is actually, if you read it, it's actually very well written. It's very elegantly written in very elegant English. Okay, this course is a design program tailored for young adults and working professionals seeking to elevate their English writing skills through the strategic integration of generative AI tools. Okay, delivered over 2 immersive sessions totaling 6 instructional hours. This course, okay, provides a comprehensive introduction to generative AI, okay, emphasizing its role, okay, as a supportive tool rather than a substitute, right? It's not substitute yet for traditional writing. So you can see that it's very eloquently, okay, written, text A, okay? But in a seminar like this, you don't want to read it. If I didn't read it out, you don't want to read it, okay? But text B, okay, if you actually group, okay, divide your content, okay, group them, okay, under 2 subjects. One is about the course, okay, and then under here, okay, next part is about the participants, okay, what the participants will gain, will do, okay, during this course, and so on. It helps people to identify, to find information quickly, to read information quickly, okay? And usually, okay, when people read the course description, they want to find out, okay, so how long is the course? What is the duration? Okay, so again, you take this out and put it, okay, as a separate bullet point. Okay, there will be 2 3-hour sessions. Okay, and again, okay, let's say if I was doing, let's say if I'm doing a job application and I'm writing a cover letter. Okay, I think text A will get me further. Yes, right? Okay. Exactly. So this is why I keep saying fit for purpose. Okay, when you write, when you do writing, okay, you need to be fit for purpose. Okay, and fit for the audience. Okay, because actually one recent conversation that I've had with friends is that they're hiring. Okay, and they're looking at resumes. Okay, applications from applicants. And one thing that my friend was saying, one conclusion that she came to was that these people have asked the computer to do their CVs. They all look the same, okay? The layout is the same, the tone is the same, the wording, okay, everything, all the same. Okay, so these people are not getting anywhere with my friend. She doesn't like them, like these sort of presentations. But if you can actually show that you can write, okay, elegantly, okay, and also well articulated. Okay, if you can write in a very well articulated manner, if the job involves somebody, if the job requires somebody with good writing skill, good presentation skills, okay, I think text A will get you further. Okay, so this is why I keep saying fit for purpose, okay, fit for the audience. Now, okay, let's go back to the generative AI, the AI for writing course, okay? And again, okay, AI at this moment in time is a powerful helper, okay, but it doesn't replace human beings yet, okay? It's only a mediocre substitute for the time being, okay? I keep saying that, okay? I don't know how fast the AI or generative AI will eventually somehow, okay, learn enough that they can replace us. Anyway, now the course then, okay, will actually help you with writing prompt, okay, effectively, so that you can instruct the computer, the AI, to do what you want or to produce the work that you actually need, and so on. Okay, all right. So because it's not a long course, it's only a 6-hour course in total. Okay, I don't think there will be a lot of sort of training per se. Okay, there will be, I'm sure there will be examples, okay, that the instructor will share with you, but I'm not sure if you will actually be writing intensively so that you can get feedback, as it were, on your writing, as it were. Okay, now the prompt is important. Okay, remember, sometimes you may think that, okay, audience, simple word, going back to the example that I used earlier. Okay, but keep in mind that, keep an open mind, okay, when you use language, when you learn a language, or when you use language. Sometimes you may want to give the computer more background or define the scenario better so that it will come up with things that you really need. Okay, like as I mentioned earlier, audience has so many meanings. Okay, if the computer misunderstands you, then it will give you something that you can't use. And the word issue as well, okay, it has so many meanings as well. In legal setting, it means offsprings. Okay, again, so if you're asking the computer to do something, okay, the prompt is very important, and this course will help you, okay, with writing your prompt, okay, effectively, and so on. Okay, now it will also again touch on the issue of intellectual property, okay, or the dangers of using it in business-related setting. As I've mentioned, yes, you can use it to help you generate a piece of minutes, as it were, of your meeting, or maybe it can help you summarize your meeting with the client so that you can present the notes to the boss. But maybe I'm just too conservative. Maybe I worry too much. I keep thinking, once I put these onto the generative AI, it's there. A lot of people can see it. You lose control. Okay, and a lot of people will be using it for their purpose as well. Okay, so I think this course will explore these issues for you. Okay, all right then. Now, if there are any inquiries, okay, please contact our program team, either by email, or you can call them as well. You're welcome to call them. Okay, and if you have any question, if the people on the floor, okay, have any questions, I'll be happy to stay and take them. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. Okay.